Do exactly this right now. Close your mouth, place your lips lightly together, take one slow breath in through your nose. Now exhale, but instead of letting the breath out silently, make a single, low, continuous sound. Keep your lips closed. Let the sound vibrate from somewhere deep in your chest and resonate upward through your throat. Hum slowly, continuously, for 10 full seconds. Do it right now while you are watching this. Close your lips and hum. Pay absolute, hyper-focused attention to exactly what just happened inside your body. Feel the physical vibration in your chest. Feel it travel up through your throat, into the floor of your mouth, and buzz into your nasal cavity. Feel the sensation spreading behind your eyes and across your skull. But notice something more profound. Notice how your breathing involuntarily slowed the moment you started humming. Notice the sudden, quiet drop in the electrical tension you were holding in your shoulders and your jaw. Notice how the background noise of anxious thought got slightly, almost impossibly, quieter. You have been sitting in that silence for 10 seconds. You think what you just felt was simply the relaxing effect of taking a slow breath. You think this is just a breathing exercise dressed up with a sound. You think there is nothing happening in your brain that a deep breath alone wouldn't produce. You are entirely, catastrophically wrong. When you hummed, you did not just exhale slowly. You created a physical, mechanical vibration that traveled directly into the longest nerve in your body. A nerve that connects your brainstem to your heart, your lungs, your gut, and your immune system. A nerve that is the master switch between your biological panic mode and your biological repair mode. And right now, across 3 distinct, undeniable layers of neuroanatomy, vascular physics, and the combat medicine of ancient Rome, I am going to show you exactly what 60 seconds of humming is doing to your brain and your body that no pill, no supplement, and no meditation app can replicate. Layer 1 is neuroanatomy. Your autonomic nervous system operates on 2 opposing modes: the sympathetic system, fight or flight, and the parasympathetic system, rest, repair, and recovery. The primary cable of the parasympathetic system is the vagus nerve. It is the longest, most complex nerve in the human body. It runs from your brainstem, through your neck, past your larynx, your voice box, and branches into your heart, your lungs, your gut, and your immune system. When you are under chronic modern stress, notifications, financial pressure, traffic, poor sleep, your sympathetic system dominates. Your heart rate climbs. Your cortisol stays elevated. Inflammation accumulates. The body is running in a permanent state of low-grade emergency. The vagus nerve is the biological brake pedal. When it fires, it instantly reduces heart rate, drops cortisol, and shifts the body from emergency mode into cellular repair mode. But here is the critical fact. The vagus nerve runs directly past your larynx. When you hum with your mouth closed and your lips together, the mechanical vibration of the sound waves physically stimulates the vagus nerve through the tissue of the larynx and the pharynx. You are not imagining relaxation. You are sending a direct, physical, vibrational signal into the primary brake cable of your nervous system. The nerve fires. The heart rate drops. The cortisol retreats. The body shifts gears. 60 seconds of humming produces a measurable, documented increase in vagal tone, the biological measure of how powerfully your parasympathetic system can override stress. Layer 2 is vascular physics. The moment you close your mouth and hum through your nose, something remarkable happens inside your nasal sinuses. The turbulent airflow generated by the humming vibration dramatically accelerates the exchange of air between the nasal cavity and the paranasal sinuses. This increased exchange causes the sinus lining to release a gas called nitric oxide directly into the airstream. Published research in the American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine found that humming increases nasal nitric oxide levels by up to 15 times compared to silent nasal breathing. 15 times. Nitric oxide is the most powerful natural vasodilator in the human body. As you inhale after each hum, that massive nitric oxide dose travels directly into your lungs and into your bloodstream. It signals the smooth muscle cells lining every blood vessel to relax and expand. Blood pressure drops. Oxygen delivery to every organ, including the brain, surges. The elderly brain suffering from chronic vascular stiffness and reduced cerebral blood flow receives a measurable increase in oxygenation within seconds of humming. Not from a medication, from a vibration. To understand how violently the modern world has separated us from this biological mechanism, look at the marching culture of the Roman legion. Roman legionaries did not march in silence. The ancient Roman military march was rhythmic, cadenced, and vibrational. Soldiers used low, rhythmic vocalizations, chants and cadences, to maintain the pace of a 20-mile march under the weight of 80 pounds of gear. These vocalizations were not morale tricks, they were biological survival tools. By maintaining continuous low-level vocalization through the march, the legionary kept his vagus nerve continuously stimulated. This suppressed the sympathetic panic response that would otherwise flood the body with cortisol during hours of extreme physical stress. It maintained heart rate variability. It kept the brain calm, and the body regulated even under brutal, sustained physical demand. They built the greatest empire in human history, partly by humming their way across it. Now, look at the profound biological tragedy of modern daily life. We wake up in silence, we commute in silence, we work in silence, we eat in silence, we scroll through screens in total, absolute, unbroken vocal silence for 16 hours a day. The modern world has made vocalization socially uncomfortable. Humming in an office is considered strange. Chanting on a commute is considered alarming. We have culturally engineered a complete, total suppression of the one vibrational mechanism that keeps the vagus nerve toned and the brain regulated. And then we spend billions of dollars on anxiety medication, blood pressure pills, and sleep aids to treat the consequences of the vagal silence we imposed on ourselves. Now close your mouth and listen. Imagine what happens when you make humming a deliberate, 60-second ritual every single morning. You hum, the vagus nerve fires, the parasympathetic system takes control, the heart rate drops, cortisol retreats, the body stops running the emergency protocol and finally, after hours of sympathetic dominance, shifts into cellular repair mode. Simultaneously, the nitric oxide floods your nasal cavity, enters your lungs, and expands the blood vessels of your brain. Cerebral blood flow increases. The neurons receive a surge of oxygen. The mental fog that has been sitting behind your eyes begins to lift. Your heart rate variability, the most accurate measure of how resilient and adaptable your nervous system is, improves. A high HRV is directly correlated with longer lifespan, lower cardiovascular risk, and superior cognitive function. 3 distinct, cascading biological mechanisms: vagal stimulation, vascular dilation, neurological oxygenation. All from 60 seconds of sound. All available to you right now, for free, without a prescription. Close your mouth. Do not wait until tomorrow. Do not save this for a wellness retreat. Do not download an app. Close your lips right now. Breathe in through your nose and hum, low, slow, and continuous. Feel the vibration in your chest, your throat, your skull. Hold the sound for 60 seconds. You are not doing a breathing exercise. You are physically stimulating the master nerve of your parasympathetic system. You are flooding your bloodstream with a vasodilator 15 times more powerful than silence. You are rebuilding the vagal tone that chronic modern stress has dismantled over years. The Romans chanted their way across continents. The sound was the medicine. Hum now. Deep breath in through your nose, and as you do, reach both of your arms directly over your head. Reach as high toward the ceiling as your joints will allow. Now do not just stretch, squeeze. Actively contract the muscles in your shoulders, your upper back, your lats, the back of your neck. Tighten them powerfully against the upward reach. Create intense, deliberate physical tension throughout your entire upper torso. Squeeze your fists. Hold that extreme tension. 3, 2, 1. Now exhale heavily, all at once, and let your arms drop completely dead to your sides. Stay exactly where you are. Feel what is happening inside your upper body right now. Feel the immediate, violent rush of heat flushing down your spine. Notice the sudden, heavy looseness in your shoulders, a physical dropping of the trapezius muscles that you didn't even realize were sitting 2 inches too close to your ears. Feel the faint, electric tingling running down the backs of your arms and pooling into your fingertips. Notice how your chest feels distinctly wider, broader, as if the ribs have mechanically unlocked. And pay attention to your next breath. Notice how it just dropped a full inch deeper into your diaphragm without you having to consciously force it down. Hold that posture. Let the nervous system process the physical echo of what you just did. That deep, sudden rush of physical release you just felt was not just a good stretch. It was not a placebo. It was not just blood flow returning to your arms. That was a hard-coded software reset of your central nervous system. It is the exact, fundamental biological sequence that your ancient ancestors ran every single morning of their entire lives, completely instinctively, before they ever took a step, spoke a word, or put a single calorie of food into their mouths. And it is the exact, critical biological sequence that you have entirely, systematically deleted from your morning routine. You just proved that the code is still in there. You just proved that your nervous system remembers how to run the reboot program. But because of the architecture of the modern morning, you have been waking up for years with a nervous system that is physically stuck in the previous day. Here is exactly what is happening inside your neurology. What you just did is not called stretching. Stretching is the act of taking a passive, unengaged muscle and mechanically pulling its ends further apart. What you just did is called pandiculation. Pandiculation is the involuntary neuromuscular reflex that occurs in almost all vertebrate animals. It is the act of taking a muscle, actively and intensely contracting it under conscious tension, and then slowly, deliberately releasing that tension back to a baseline state. There is a profound, night and day neurological difference between stretching a muscle and pandiculating a muscle. When you sleep, your brain heavily reduces its active motor control over your skeletal muscles. As you lie still for 8 hours, your nervous system essentially parks your body. To protect your joints from overextension while you are unconscious, the brain sets a baseline level of stiffness in the connective tissues. If you wake up and immediately try to simply stretch those stiff muscles, if you just passively pull on them, your nervous system fights back. A mechanism called the myotatic stretch reflex detects the sudden pulling, assumes the muscle is tearing, and automatically contracts the muscle to protect it. You pull, the brain pulls back. You gain almost no actual release. Pandiculation completely bypasses the defense mechanism. When you reached up and actively squeezed the muscles of your upper back, you sent a massive, overwhelming biofeedback signal directly to your sensory motor cortex. You told the brain, "I am awake. I have taken conscious control of this hardware. You can turn off the autonomous safety stiffness." By contracting the muscle to its maximum and then consciously releasing it, you force the brain to recalibrate the resting length of the muscle fibers. The brain essentially says, "Oh, we are awake now. We can drop the tension." This is a system reboot. It cures a condition known in clinical somatics as sensory motor amnesia, the state where your brain literally forgets how to fully relax a muscle because it has been holding it tight for so long. Every single wild vertebrate animal on planet Earth does this automatically. Watch a dog wake up from a nap on the rug. It does not open its eyes and instantly break into a full sprint. It stands up. It plants its front paws. It drops its chest to the floor in a downward dog bow. It actively, violently contracts the muscles of its back and shoulders. It holds the tension. It yawns, which is simply pandiculation of the jaw and respiratory diaphragm, and then it releases. Watch a cat wake up. It arches its back, squeezing every muscle along its spine, and then lets it drop. They do not do this because they are doing animal yoga. They do it because the mammalian nervous system physically requires the pandicular reflex to transition from the paralysis of sleep to the readiness of waking life. You used to do this. Bobbies do it in the crib. Toddlers do it when they wake up. But you stopped. And because you stopped, you are carrying the muscular tension of yesterday and the sleep stiffness of last night directly into the middle of today. You are physically conscious, but your musculoskeletal system is neurologically stuck in defense mode. For 200,000 years of anatomically modern human history, the morning was governed by this exact biological sequence. An ancient human did not wake up to an artificial noise in pitch blackness. They woke gradually with the rising of the sun and the shifting temperature of the environment. The very first action upon crossing the threshold into consciousness was the pandicular reflex. The yawn, the deep, full-body contraction and release, the manual reboot of the sensory-motor cortex. The second action was walking outside, stepping out of the cave, the shelter, the hut, and into the raw, unmitigated photon energy of the morning sun. The third action was forward locomotion, walking, moving through space, gathering firewood, fetching water, tracking game, checking the perimeter. Notice what is missing from this sequence. Breakfast. The concept of a massive, carbohydrate-heavy morning meal eaten immediately upon waking did not exist. In fact, for the vast majority of human history, eating early in the morning was either a physical impossibility, because the food had to be hunted or gathered first, or a cultural taboo. The Romans literally believed that eating more than one large meal a day was unhealthy, and consuming a heavy meal first thing in the morning was considered a form of gluttony reserved for the sick or the elderly. The biological sequence of the ancient human was sleep, nervous system reset, sunlight, forward movement, labor, and then much later food. This is the exact sequence that your endocrine system, your circadian biology, and your neuroanatomy evolved to expect. It is the sequence that primes the human machine for optimal, high-focus survival. And you have systematically replaced every single step of it with an engineered catastrophe. Here is what modern life did to the human morning. First, we invented the alarm clock. We took a brain that is deep in the delta wave restorative cycles of sleep, and we introduced an auditory shock, a sudden, blaring, high-decibel synthetic noise. This noise triggers an immediate acoustic startle reflex. The brain detects the sudden sound as a mortal threat. The amygdala fires. The adrenal glands dump a massive spike of adrenaline and cortisol into the bloodstream. You do not peacefully wake up. You are violently, chemically startled into sheer panic. Your heart rate skyrockets. Your blood pressure spikes. You are placed instantly into a fight-or-flight sympathetic nervous state before you have even opened your eyes. Second, we introduced the smartphone. Before your feet even touch the floor, before you have taken a single deep breath, you reach for a glowing rectangle. You hold it 6 inches from your face. By doing this, you completely skip the pandicular reset. You skip the yawn. You skip the stretch. Your muscles stay locked in their sleep paralysis stiffness. The sensory-motor amnesia sets in permanently for the day. Your shoulders remain hunched, your neck remains rigid, and you physically carry that trapped, unreleased tension into the bathroom, into the kitchen, and into your car. And as you stare at the screen, your eyes become entirely fixed. You are absorbing the stress of the world, emails, news, social media outrage, while your body is perfectly still, and your vision is locked in a narrow, two-dimensional box. You have managed to combine the chemical stress response of being chased by a predator with the physical paralysis of being trapped in a cage. And you do this within the first 90 seconds of your day. Then you sit down. You sit at a table, and you eat a highly processed, carbohydrate-dense breakfast that spikes your insulin and shuts down your orexin production, the exact neuropeptide responsible for making you feel alert, driven, and awake. You skip the reset, you skip the light, you skip the movement, you spike the panic, and then you sedated yourself with food. And you wonder why you need 3 cups of highly concentrated caffeine just to feel like a functioning human being by 9. But the deleted muscular reset is only the first mechanism of your morning exhaustion. Because by staring at a phone instead of the sky, you are sabotaging the most powerful hormonal cascade your body possesses. When an ancient human walked outside into the dawn, the morning sunlight entered their eyes. Inside the human retina, there is a specialized class of cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, or iPRGCs. These cells do not see shapes. They do not see colors. They exist for one singular evolutionary purpose: to measure the absolute brightness of the environment, specifically the blue and green wavelengths of natural sunlight, and report that brightness directly to the master clock in the brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. When bright, natural outdoor light hits those cells early in the day, it triggers an essential biological mechanism called the cortisol awakening response, or CAR. Do not confuse this with chronic, toxic stress cortisol. The cortisol awakening response is a healthy, vital, massive pulse of waking hormone. This spike in cortisol is the biochemical signal that completely clears the remaining adenosine from your brain receptors. Adenosine is the molecule of sleepiness. It is the chemical that makes you feel groggy. The morning cortisol spike acts like a biological power wash, scrubbing the sleep molecules out of your neural receptors. At the exact same time, this light-induced cortisol spike sets a 14 to 16-hour timer for your pineal gland to release melatonin later that night. The morning light literally dictates the quality of your evening sleep. When you wake up and look at a smartphone screen, the screen feels bright to your conscious eyes in a dark room. But to the iPRGCs in your retina, the photon density of a phone screen is pathetic. It is maybe 500 lux of light intensity. Natural morning sunlight, even on a cloudy day, is between 10,000 and 50,000 lux. The phone screen is bright enough to stress your nervous system with bad news, but it is astronomically too dim to trigger the cortisol awakening response. Because you stayed indoors, because you looked at a phone instead of the sky, your CAR is blunted. The cortisol spike never reaches its peak. The adenosine is never fully scrubbed from your receptors. You walk around with residual sleep molecules attached to your brain well into the afternoon. You feel groggy, slow, and lethargic, not because you didn't sleep enough, because you never biologically signaled to your brain that it was time to wake up. And there is a third mechanism, the movement. When the ancient human walked out of the shelter and moved across the landscape to find water or hunt, they engaged in forward locomotion. When you walk forward, the visual world moves past you. Trees, rocks, the horizon, they stream past the periphery of your eyes. In neurobiology, this is called optic flow. In the last decade, advanced neuroscience has discovered exactly what optic flow does to the human brain. The lateral eye movements, generated by moving forward through a landscape directly and mechanically, suppress the amygdala. The amygdala is the threat detection center of your brain. It is the panic button. When you walk forward and generate optic flow, the brain receives a hardwired neurological signal that says, "We are moving. We are not trapped. We are navigating the environment successfully." This signal dramatically reduces anxiety, lowers the resting heart rate, and turns off the sympathetic fight-or-flight response. It is a mechanical off switch for stress. This is the exact underlying neurological mechanism utilized in EMDR eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, therapy to treat severe PTSD. The lateral eye movement suppresses the fear center. Ancient humans got this amygdala suppression automatically, every single morning, simply by walking forward to start their day. They mechanically cleared their anxiety before they ever engaged in complex problem solving. You sit in a chair. You drink coffee in your kitchen. You sit in your car. You sit at your desk. Your visual field is entirely static. There is zero optic flow. The amygdala is never suppressed. Worse, your visual field is locked onto a narrow screen, which triggers foveal vision, the narrowed, hyperfocused visual state the brain uses when hunting prey or fighting an enemy. Foveal vision actively increases sympathetic arousal. You traded optic flow, the ultimate anxiety reducer, for foveal screen starring, the ultimate anxiety amplifier. Now stand completely still and recognize the sheer magnitude of the biological machinery you have been suppressing. Think about the heat and the looseness you felt in your shoulders when you reached up and dropped your arms. Think about the depth of the breath that effortlessly followed. That was just one mechanism. Imagine all three running in sequence. Three profound, neurobiological mechanisms running simultaneously, cascading perfectly into one another, creating an unstoppable physiological momentum. 1. Pandiculation, the intense contraction and release of the musculature, resetting the sensory-motor cortex, erasing the physical stiffness of the night, rebooting the nervous system from paralyzed to primed. 2. The cortisol awakening response, triggered by the massive photon density of natural morning light hitting the retinal ganglion cells, scrubbing the brain of residual adenosine, erasing the chemical grogginess, starting the 16-hour countdown for perfect, deep sleep that night. 3. Optic flow, generated by forward locomotion, visual information streaming past the eyes, signaling safety to the brain stem and actively, mechanically suppressing the amygdala's fear response, erasing baseline anxiety before the day's stress can even begin. All three of these immense systems ran automatically for your ancestors. They ran before a single word of a morning meeting was spoken. They ran before the first calorie of food was consumed. They were the prerequisite for human function. You deleted all three. You replaced the Pandiculation with the paralyzed, hunched scroll of the smartphone. You replaced the photon density of the sun with the pathetic, artificial glare of a glowing rectangle. You replaced the anxiety-killing optic flow of forward movement with the anxiety-spiking foveal vision of sitting entirely static in a chair. You broke the sequence, you starved the receptors, you locked the muscles. And then you tried to fix the devastating chemical and physical fallout with a synthetic alarm clock, a highly processed breakfast, and massive doses of liquid caffeine. You did not lose your morning energy because you got older. You did not become a non-morning person because of your genetics. You simply stopped running the startup sequence the machine requires to turn on. Now, the evidence calibration. Because these mechanisms span multiple disciplines of biology, and I want you to know exactly how firmly established each one is in the scientific literature. The Pandiculation response and the concept of sensory-motor amnesia is established, bedrock clinical somatics, pioneered by researchers like Thomas Hanna. The difference between the Tuck stretch reflex and the cortical reset of Pandiculation is highly documented neurology. It is measurable on an EMG. It is physiological fact. The cortisol awakening response and the function of intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, APAGASUS, is Nobel Prize-winning circadian biology. The exact mechanisms by which lux intensity and blue light wavelengths regulate the suprachiasmatic nucleus and clear adenosine are arguably the most heavily researched topics in modern sleep science. Not debated, absolute biological fact. The effect of optic flow on the amygdala and the suppression of the sympathetic nervous system is heavily documented in modern neuroscience, brought into mainstream awareness by researchers like Dr. Indra Huberman. The lateral eye movements mechanically quieting the fear center is the proven underlying mechanism of EMDR therapy, which is the gold standard for trauma treatment. Strong, replicated neurological science. The historical claim that ancient humans did not eat a massive breakfast immediately upon waking is a robust anthropological and archaeological consensus. The very word breakfast means to break the fast, an event that historically happened much later in the day after the initial labor was completed. The structured, early morning, carbohydrate-heavy meal is an invention of the post-industrial revolution era, designed to pack workers with cheap calories before they entered a factory for a 12-hour shift. The history is consensus, the neuroscience is proven, the circadian biology is Nobel laureate-level fact. The physics of your body are not broken, they have simply been waiting for you to press the correct sequence of buttons. Do it again right now. Take a deep breath, reach your arms to the ceiling, reach higher. Squeeze the upper back, squeeze the lats, contract the shoulders against the air. Build the tension until your arms shake slightly. 3, 2, 1. Exhale, drop them dead. Feel the rush, feel the heat, feel the shoulders unlock. Feel the nervous system recognize the signal and drop its defenses. That feeling is your biology begging you to return to the baseline. Tomorrow morning when the synthetic alarm goes off, do not touch the phone. Do not look at the glowing rectangle. Leave it face down. Stand up immediately. Run the sequence. Pandiculation. Contract and release the muscles of your back, your arms, your legs. Reset the sensory motor cortex. Erase the sleep. Step outside. Do not look through a window. Glass filters the light. Step out into the raw photons. Let the light hit the retina, trigger the cortisol awakening response, scrub the adenosine. And walk forward, just for 5 minutes. Let the visual world stream past you, generate the optic flow, suppress the amygdala, kill the baseline anxiety before the world has a chance to hand you more. Pandiculation, light, optic flow. 3 mechanisms, 10 minutes, every single morning. The fatigue was never your fault. The grogginess was a product of the cage, the screen, and the alarm. The sentence was a life lived in a state of permanent, low-level exhaustion. The pardon is the sequence, the exact sequence your ancestors ran every day of their lives. Run the program. The nervous system will do the rest.